Let me tell you, if you've never seen a mob of well-dressed strangers storm your front gate waving cash and legal documents, you haven't lived. There I was, standing in the morning haze, staring down Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of the Lakefront Estates HOA, while she shrieked, "This ranch is now community property, and you have no right to stop us." She was practically foaming at the mouth, brandishing some fancy-looking authorization like she'd just been appointed by the president himself. Behind her, a horde of suburban warriors clutching checkbooks and hope, ready to carve up every acre of my family's land like a Thanksgiving turkey. I didn't say a word. Didn't have to, because in that moment, they had no idea. They'd just handed the entire neighborhood to me, and not a single one of them realized what was coming. Let me back up a sec. About 6 months before all that chaos, life was actually pretty simple. My name's Ethan Rowe. I was 42, a retired aerospace engineer, and by all accounts, living the good life on the ranch my grandmother left me. The place sat right above Crystal Lake, and every day I'd watch the sun spill gold across the water from my porch. Made you feel like the luckiest guy in the world. Grandma always said land wasn't just dirt or grass. It was a legacy, a promise to everyone who came before and everyone who'd come after. On quiet nights, I'd sit with those words rattling around in my head, wondering if I was just playing house or carrying the torch. Then the letters started coming. You ever get one of those official-looking envelopes that just smell like trouble? That's how Karen introduced herself. President of the Lakefront Estates HOA, which sounded harmless until I read her complaint. My drone test flights, part of my little side gig engineering unmanned aircraft, were apparently disrupting Wi-Fi and cell signals for the entire community. She wanted me to shut down all my equipment, said I was in violation of some electromagnetic interference regulation. At first, I just laughed. My land wasn't even in her HOA. I'd been flying drones out here since before they had regulations for this stuff. But Karen didn't back down. Not even close. Within a week, she upped the ante. $500 fines, threats of federal aviation violations, legal action, the works. The language in her letters? Not the usual bored suburban nitpicking. It was polished. She started name-dropping federal transportation codes, saying she had official documentation showing my ranch was in a new federal safety zone. She bragged about having friends in county offices, people who could dig up dirt or rewrite boundaries with a phone call. You know what I mean? The more I ignored her, the nastier her threats got. For the first time, I felt that old cold fear, same one Grandma used to talk about, when land speculators and government types came sniffing around with big plans. I kept telling myself it was all just Karen playing pretend. But then the county called. A real, live official, not some HOA stooge. He wanted an inspection. Said there were multiple complaints about unauthorized commercial aviation activity. Needed to check for violations of federal transportation codes. That's when I realized this wasn't just some local nuisance. Karen was plugged in. This was a move. And if I didn't fight back, it was going to get ugly fast. That weekend, I decided to do what Grandma always said, go digging in the past. I spent 2 straight days buried in the attic, sorting through a century's worth of deeds and dusty ledgers. That's when I found it. The original 1922 deed. Turns out, my family didn't just own the ranch. We owned the underground utility corridors, power lines, gas pipes, fiber, you name it, running right through the Lakefront Estate subdivision. That meant every last resident out there had been using my land for free, and they didn't even know they owed a dime. Monday morning, I sat across from a real estate lawyer, Maxwell Stone. I spread out the deed on his desk. His eyes lit up, told me this wasn't just property, it was leverage. Ethan, you could cut their power with one call. They owe you. He started speculating about why Karen was so dead set on my place. Rumor was, the feds were quietly planning a high-speed rail through here. Billions in contracts, secret surveys, the whole deal. Suddenly, Karen's obsession with federal codes made a lot more sense. I thought I had the upper hand. Then came the next move. Karen held an emergency HOA meeting, pulled together a crowd, fired up a PowerPoint with drone footage of my backyard, edited to make me look like some kind of James Bond villain. She accused me of running a surveillance operation, spying for foreign interests, putting everyone's children in danger. People started signing petitions to have me kicked out as a threat to national security. That's when I walked to the front and laid down the 1922 deed. I told the crowd, the lines that power your homes, the gas that heats your showers, the internet you use for Facebook, every inch of it runs under my land. And unless you want to negotiate fair agreements, I can shut it all off. Karen's face went sheet white, her confidence cracked. She bluffed about public utilities, but everyone could see she was rattled. But the game got dirtier. That night, I got an anonymous text. Check your lawyer's client list and ask yourself what Karen knows about upcoming government projects. Turns out, Maxwell, my trusted attorney, was a double agent, feeding my strategy straight to Karen and her shadowy friends, all paid through some shell company tied to big development money. So, I hired a private investigator, Diana Carter, who uncovered it all. Maxwell was on Karen's payroll. The real brains, though, was a city councilman named Bradley Walsh. He was orchestrating a multi-state land grab for the new high-speed rail, using HOA puppets like Karen to pressure families off their land before the feds made it public and property values went through the roof. Karen was just a pawn, promised a board seat and a fat payoff for delivering my ranch. The whole thing stunk of backroom deals and old-school corruption. I brought in a new lawyer, Vincent Harper, a bulldog with a personal vendetta. His own father had lost their ranch to a similar scheme and taken his own life. Vincent found that the old deed didn't just give us utility rights, it protected us from forced seizure and guaranteed compensation for mineral rights if anyone tried to take the land. We set a trap, leaking a rumor that a telecom company wanted to pay $25 million for 5G tower rights on my ranch. Within days, Karen tried to block the deal, blurted out her connection to federal rail projects, and admitted, in a recorded call, that the area was under survey for a new transportation corridor. By now, the neighborhood was turning against her. Lucas Patterson, a young environmental scientist, slipped me proof that Karen was extorting residents, threatening them with foreclosure unless they signed her petition. He also handed over secret recordings where she talked about neutralizing me and federal partners who would make the problem disappear. Karen's next move was a masterpiece of fraud. A fake community auction where she tried to sell off my ranch to unsuspecting residents, using forged documents and bogus title insurance. What she didn't know was I'd rigged the place with surveillance, recording every shady meeting, every phone call, every fake signature. When she started collecting cash, the FBI swooped in. They arrested Karen, her forger, and seized enough evidence to blow the whole network wide open. But that was just the beginning. As they dragged Karen out in cuffs, she laughed, called herself a front person, and warned me that the real power, Walsh and his friends, wouldn't stop until the land was theirs. The next day, black SUVs rolled up my drive. Men in tactical gear jumped out, and Walsh himself, oozing fake authority, told me this was national security and that I could take their settlement or risk everything. He tried to scare me with private military contractors dressed as federal agents. But standing at my grandmother's gate, I remembered her words. Land isn't just property, it's a responsibility. Vincent put his hand on my shoulder, told me this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every family fighting people like Walsh. I stared down the barrel of their threats and refused to sell. That's when Walsh snapped. He ordered his men to make it look like self-defense, pointed guns at me and Lucas. In that split second, I stepped between them and took the bullet meant for Lucas. As I hit the ground, I handed him the deed and whispered, "Protect this land for everyone who can't protect theirs." My last thought was the sun reflecting off Crystal Lake, just like in Grandma's stories. I knew then our surveillance system had recorded everything, and that my death wouldn't be in vain. News broke like wildfire. Lucas's phone footage and my dead man's switch, automatically dumping every shred of evidence to the press and the feds, brought down Walsh's network overnight. Congressional hearings, SEC investigations, DOJ indictments, you name it. Karen confessed to everything, implicating Walsh and exposing a decade of murders, extortion, and fraud up and down the rail corridor. They found evidence of at least 15 accidental deaths linked to his scheme. In the end, Walsh got life without parole, his lieutenants went down with him, and Karen died in prison. The company lost billions. The government rewrote the law. But that's not where it ended. The ranch became a memorial preserve. Lucas took over, turned the land into a model for environmental stewardship. The legal foundation Vincent started with the settlement money helped hundreds of families fight back against crooked developers. The Roe Protection Act got passed, real teeth against eminent domain abuse and HOA fraud. All because one stubborn guy refused to sell out. If you're listening and you've ever stared down a bully in a suit, or wondered if one person can still make a difference, yeah, that happened. I'm proof that ordinary Americans can still fight the system and win, even if it costs everything. So what do you think? Did justice win? Or is the game still rigged? Leave a comment below, share your own HOA horror stories, and let's hear what side you're on. Maybe, just maybe, stories like this will keep the next Walsh from getting away with it.